lotus flower is associated with a victory of the spirit over that of wisdom, intelligence, and knowledge. The white lotus is known to represent a state of mental purity and that of spiritual perfection. The purple is known to be mystic, and the pink is supreme, the flower of Buddha. And finally, the red is related to the heart. But what of the black orchid? What does that stand for?
Mr. Kane pauses on the platform, puts down his bag and checks his pockets for his ticket. As the train moves away, it reveals the sign in the centre of the tracks. It reads, "Welcome to Gallatry. Listen, vote, despair." Mr. Kane shudders inside. He turns and begins to walk along the platform and away into the station. He pulls out the document from his breast pocket as if it was pressing heavily on his heart, making it pace slightly quicker. The document is an invitation to the annual Florists' Convention. As he walks along, his mind drifts back to last year. The humiliation in front of the entire conference, his peers, his sternest critics, and his enemies. The Gallatry contingent, always together, a cabal of spite, protecting the traditional florist values to the end and heckling all those who wish to modernise the profession, like himself. The chants drift back. Like a pack of baying hyenas, their mocking still hurts him, but not as much as the encore that put an end to the conference when the police were called. As he started his final point regarding the lotus flower and enlightenment, the Gallatry contingent turned into a mob of incredulous disapproval and then incandescent violence. He was struck several times as they stormed the stage and grappled him away from the mic. He was upended, and the encore to his humiliation was his picture in the Florist Gazette. His upside-down face peering out, buried beneath the crowd like a mountain, terrified with his naked backside plumb centre of the photo, and a chrysanthemum sprouting forth, and a natural growth from there, indeed. But this year, the conference is here, in Gallatry, on their home turf. He shudders as he walks out of the station onto the street, the flower phantasm creeping out as if his feet wanted him to stop and turn back. They clicked kumquat unevenly and fretfully in his head. Mr. Kane stops outside the Hotel Lazarus on Station Street, stops, peruses his paperwork and walks in, sheepishly. The reception is empty, strange for a conference, he thought. He leans at the counter and a large blonde-haired man appears from the back room.
Guten Tag, what is your name? My name is Charlie Kane. Sehr gut, alles ist in Ordnung. Here's your key, Herr Kane.
Kane looks down at his key fob. It reads the David Carradine suite.
Thank you, Eustace. Welcome back, dearest listeners from both here and there, and then and maybe even the will be. This is Gallatry, the void between reality and the fantastical, the noise in the night, the darkness under your bed. This is where you hit play on your iPod and at the exact same second instant someone else does across the globe. As you tap your foot to the critically acclaimed Waterboys, you are unaware of what a natural union you have just entered into. 18 years later, a young woman stops you in the street and says, "Hello, father." What is this, you think, as your head spins? You protest. "I have no children. I lead a quiet life." The young woman says, "My mother showed you all of the moon 18 years ago, and now I am here looking for you." You then remember that night with the iPod, the Water Boys. This is the nightmare that you should have made provision for, especially here in Gallatry. You say, "Pretty as you are, my dear, 'tis only the evil threadworms that are brought unto the Water Boys, water spawn, water boatmen under that cursed moonlight. Begone, evil whole moon progeny, begone! I am pure, I seek enlightenment, not just the whole of the moon as I did in my youth. I am like the lotus flower, untouched by water, not the sire of an unnatural backwards demon child." Welcome to Gallatry, flower. Welcome to Gallatry. Welcome back, dearest listeners. It's another fine civic day here in Gallatry, and we have got news from the mayoral office. Let's go over to the perennial building site that is our Babel dream and see what's for government luncheon today. We're all bored of spam now. An expectant crowd mills around the barriers that flank the big pile of rubble and look wistfully at the huge billboard with Ziggy the Ferret and the slogan, "High five, Babylon rise," that some wag has crossed out the word Babylon and added cock in instead. The crowd are hushed as the PA system kicks in with a banshee hoot of feedback, and all eyes are facing the rostrum, nestled in the piles of detritus and ziggurat foundations. A truly modern democratic scene. The mayor suddenly decloaks and is hovering before them like an ecclesiastical hummingbird, pulsing a purple colour as she surveys the crowd in all her mayoral glory.
"Dear Gallatry, my dear children, I have some great news. In answer to recent criticism of the general state of the town, by the way, you know who you are, we have decided to act. Whilst the building works are underway, the town has seen grey, dusty, and has the welcome bonjour of a slag heap. I want to bring back some colour to your dreary existence. We have decided to enter the National City in Bloom competition and have enlisted the help of our resident flower expert and florist.
The mayor raises her arm, turns and banks slightly to her left. An immaculately dressed but decidedly ugly man walks onto the low stage with a box under his arm and a carnation in his lapel, as he is no flower. Under the brim of his black fedora hat, his face is strangely featureless, as if he had no nose, which is strange, as all the florists seem to look like that here in Gallatry.
I would like to introduce you to Mr. Anton Bridger. Mr. Bridger has some interesting news that will help our preparations for the City in Bloom competition.
Thank you, Merix. Some may know me from my florists on the high street. Bloom, bloom, let's shake the room. But I am also the florist master here in Gallatry. The responsibilities of my elected role are to protect the traditional values of the flower retail industry, and if any flower-related problems in the bud, so to speak, but also to innovate for the good of the industry and Gallatry naturally.
Bridger looked across and up at the mayor before continuing.
I have been working on a project for some time which is the holy grail for us florists, the Black Orchid. After many years of careful cultivation and some recent innovations in genetics, we have achieved the impossible here in Gallatry. Let me show you what is going to win us this City in Bloom competition. I present our Black Orchid.
Mr. Bridger opened up the box to reveal a small black flower with a red centre. From a certain angle, it resembles the head of an angry beast with its jaws open, showing its tongue as it attempts to bite you. Its sweet, sweet fragrance drifted across the building site and all became strangely calm, obedient and, well, servile. You know, like when we declare a war on something intangible.
Isn't she beautiful? I have decided to name my creation a Black Orchid, as it was carefully nurtured here in Gallatry. I will be explaining my plans for the City in Bloom competition with my florist colleagues over the course of the next couple of days at the National Florist Convention, which this year is to be held here in Gallatry at the Lazarus Convention Centre. The mayor asked me to break the good news to you all ahead of the conference, as the Florist Convention is always held in camera, in secret as per the strict covenant of the Florists Retail Association. We don't want any adverse publicity like the incidents of previous years, and security will be tight as Chief Anderson has personally taken charge.
The mayor turned back to the crowd.
Thank you, Mr. Bridget. I'm sure we all agree that these orchids in every flower basket in town will soon brighten the place up a bit. Lift the spirits of our hard-working, multicultural and deeply unified community here at the end of their tether in Gallatry. Thank you.
The mayor flickered slightly before slowly hovering back from the stage, then suddenly recloaked and was gone. Welcome back! Wow! A new flower here in Gallatry. I always did wonder what the florists did for this town. There seems to be an inordinate number of them, but they all seem to be very successful, very engaged in society, heading up various civic groups, clubs and business associations. Sometimes it feels like they run this town more than the mayor does, but I'm sure there's nothing to be worried about. After all, a lot of business organisations conduct their business in private. We probably wouldn't understand what they were planning for our mundane lives anyway. Now let's go over to our community slot, the not very cogent opinion wall, and see what graffiti wisdom we can glean from the streets of illicit dreams this week. This is from our own resident film expert, Mr. Spartacus, via email.
The Kubrick film A Clockwork Orange wasn't banned just after its release here in Gallatry, as is commonly believed. Kubrick withdrew the film on account of a casting error, which he subsequently tried to keep from the public. The critics slated it, saying that the lead actor was unconvincing in his chimp mask and that it was too Planet of the Apes. Kubrick then reshot the film with Malcolm McDowell rather than Roddy McDowell, and the rest is history.
Hang on, here's another.
If you have received any correspondence from a film buff called Spartacus, he's a fraud. I am Spartacus, the real slim Spartacus. Just ask me to please stand up, and you will see. Casting errors in films can often cause a delayed reaction with audiences. Take the film Highlander. This has a Frenchman playing a Scotsman playing an Egyptian with a Portuguese name, and an ugly American playing a Russian. However, the Highlander House of Cards finally came tumbling down in Highlander 2. That has a Frenchman playing God, and this was deemed, well, simply ridiculous.
Back in the Hotel Lazarus, Mr. Kane opens his room door, drops his bag onto the floor and sits on the end of the bed. He dreads the following morning, facing the hyenas of the Gallatry florists seemingly alone, as no one else appears to be staying in the hotel, the only one in town. This time he thinks they might even try and kill me. He shudders as he imagines the gravestone, shaped like a urinal in a Gallatry cemetery with a tacky wreath reading, "We warned you, chrysanthemum bum." Mr. Kane begins to prepare for bed and turns out the light, then turns restlessly and attempts to get some sleep. He is awoken by a distant voice.
Master Lotus, you come to the Himalayas. You come to the Himalayas.
Cain shoots up in bed and watches the sheets on the bed writhe and curl together, alive like the white foam on an ocean swell. The sheets begin to wrap around his feet and form a ball. It is not unpleasant, not tight, and he feels, well, light. Cain stands up with the white bedclothes around his ankles. He can no longer see his feet, and then he has the strangest sensation. He started to float around the room. He was slightly unsteady at first, but by using his arms he practiced balancing and turning as he hovered around over the bed.
Master Lotus, you can't let him release. You can't let him release.
The voice is louder now, and he is drawn towards the ceiling. He flinches as his head nears the surface, but as he rises, he passes right through it. His upper torso is now completely gone from the hotel room, and anyone looking up from below will have seen his legs hanging from the ceiling, subsumed in a small flying cloud. On the upper side of the ceiling, Cain soon realises that he is in a different place, as he is high in the sky, above the cloud level, looking down on snowy mountain peaks. He again rises and escapes the room. He's now flying high towards a huge peak in the far distance, gaining speed as he zips through the air effortlessly on the glowing cloud at his feet. As Cain nears the vast peak, he sees it has a large human form, the head and shoulders of a massive, serene figure. The rest of the body disappears under the clouds into the hidden landscape below. Cain's speed drops as he approaches the gargantuan face. He stops and realises that he is now standing on a huge hand like a plateau. The giant face before him is peaceful, reflective, and seems in deep thought as the eyes are closed. The voice suddenly comes again.
Do you know me? This is within this, and this is within everything. I am Buddha, who stands before me.
You're a big man, but you're out of shape.
Such importance for one alone in the land of the universe. I am a holy form. Now who stands before me?
Cain quivers under the sound as its power shakes his whole frame. My name is Charlie Cain. I am a florist.
And what do you see?
I seek power, Mr. Buddha. I'm alone, and tomorrow must face my enemies.
What makes you believe that you should leave your way before you achieve enlightenment? Anyone can be enlightened. Flower Man, you can. So you should. So the Flower Man seeks power to destroy his enemies. Be careful what you see. Shall we have a little waiting? Can you tell me the name of the flower which I think? Succeed and you shall get your power, but fail on the other hand, and you shall be in my thrall, stay under forever. So, is it agreed?
It's a bet. The flower that you are thinking of is a lotus.
Good try, but it was a gladioli.
Buddha then smiles and looks down at the tiny figure standing on his hand.
Now your journey begins, lotus flower. Let me introduce you to your job of work.
Buddha tips Cain out of his hand and Cain falls to earth. He hits the ground and then a mountain of rock begins to fall on him until he feels like the whole of the Himalayas are on his body. Only his head is left poking out.
You need to learn patience, lotus flower.
Here we are.
Cain then cannot assess the passage of time anymore. A second could be a minute, or a day, or 1,000 years. He begins to remember things. He remembers that he is a monkey king leading an army of monkeys into many battles. He remembers becoming a god, an immortal. He remembers that he is a sage and has learnt all the great magics. Pick a card, any card! He can remember being thrown out of heaven by the other gods and wandering the eastern earth in disgrace. He remembers whistling for his fly cloud and travelling to the 5 pillars at the end of the universe. He remembers urinating on the 5 pillars and flying back, only to upset Buddha as the 5 pillars were actually Buddha's fingers. Hygiene is next to enlightenment in a Buddhist dictionary. He then remembers that he is Cain and sees himself climbing a high mountain alone through wind and snow. He reaches the top there's a temple. He remembers his head being shaved and he begins to learn the ways of a monk. He remembers learning how to dodge flying spears. Don't throw those bloody spears at me, you bloody Shaolin! He remembers learning how to fight with flails, staffs and using throwing stars. 180! He remembers carrying the burning pot on his forearms. Soup's up! Come and get it! Hurry up! This is bleeding hot! He remembers trying to take the pebble from the master's hand.
When you can take the pebble from my hand, Lotus Flower, you are ready to leave.
He remembers the journey up the mountain, seeking enlightenment like the lotus rises from the earth to heaven untouched by water. He remembers finally taking the pebble from the master's hand. He looks down at it. It says, Bingo! He remembers trying to teach Monkey the breath of God to gently blow the spores from the flower in his hand. Monkey blows so hard that the flower flies off into the sky. I told you to only blow the bloody spores off! Encrusted under the mountain, the figure cannot remember who he is anymore. Is he Cain? Is he Monkey? Is he Lotus Flower?
One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering to the results unto Buddha, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus is untouched by water.
Cain wakes up and finds himself tied up in his bedclothes, with a pillow over his head and soaked in sweat. What a strange dream, he thinks, as he sits up in bed. He then sees the delicate invitation sitting on the side table and winces. The florist's convention is today. Cain jumps out of bed, picks up the alarm clock and deftly throws it through the air. It spins, hitting the delegate pack and spears it to the wall. Florists of Galatry, today is your wake-up call. My name is Cain, Charlie Cain, the Shaolin Monkey. Cain walks out of the lift into reception. He follows the arrow on a sign standing on an artist's easel in the middle of the room. He walks along the corridor, passing the John Candy Lounge, the Jimi Hendrix Suite, and finally to the Richard Nixon Career Hall. Strange, thought Cain, then reassured himself of the naming convention, as indeed Nixon's career did also die in a hotel room. He walked along the red rope temporary barrier towards two council transformers who were barring his entrance. He proffers his invitation, only slightly punctured by a flying kung fu alarm clock, and looks at the two guards as they refer to a list of names on a clipboard.
Sorry, Mr. Cain, but you're not on this list anymore, by order of the Florist Master. Only Galatry florists at this year's convention, so why don't you just go home and prune your petunias, or whatever you lot do in your spare time, you cock-old petal.
The boss don't want you here, mister, so go preen your posy elsewhere.
Cain looks around him slowly, then looks up and replies, Gentlemen, do you know the difference between a weasel flower and a stokeweed? The two roughs look at each other in bemusement and fail to notice that Cain is entwining the red VIP rope around his hand behind his back. The weasel is Weasley identified. Stoke is totally different. Not a lot of people know that. Cain steps over the prostrate bodies, now abed, and ekes open the door gingerly to see the meeting inside the room. Cain peers through the eke gap of the ajar door. He looks at the rows of backs of the florists' heads sitting at circular tables, sweaty necks a la wet brill cream as they all look on, like he at the featureless face of the florist master, and listen to his maleficent address. In this anti-beauty pageant, ugly concepts and power always trump working with children and world peace.
As we now have the means to our common goal, our common purpose, we need to play our cards very carefully. The mayor knows what my Black Orchid can do, and we businessmen now need to show strong floral compass within the framework of the democratic process in this town. With great power comes great opportunity. Let's keep our upstanding, opinion-leading and indignant snippy state of grace intact about this town. This gallantry ship of fools will buy our orchids and submit to them, and hand in hand with our duly elected mayoral partner, we will make this town a more dutiful, pleasing, obedient, and, dare I say it, a more fragrant place to run, although I can only guess what the sensation is truly like. I may be a florist, but I don't need the engaging nose of truth in order to know the power of flowers and what wealth they can bring to the poor.
Kane enters the room and stands sentinel in the void between door and conference. Bridger sees him. A hush falls as every featureless face turns to face the lone figure of Kane at the back of the room.
So I castigated outside alone, a colleague has deigned to join us. What do you want to hear, Mr. Kane? A lesson in life, a lesson in power, a lesson in floristry. You're late. You are very late for your own funeral. This is the only lesson in flowers you will ever understand. You are a contempt and opprobrium, a castigate of what we are now doing here in this town. We say it with power. We say it with control. We say it with flowers. Now, do you need another chrysanthemum for your trouble? Get him, lads.
The crowd all turn towards Kane, a blacker, soulless bunch of malevolence you will never see again, dear hearts. Not in your town, anyway. Kane begins to walk towards the stage, slowly, and begins to speak. Get me? I'm enlightened. I'm many things now. I flow through everything. What can you smell? The success you craved as a young florist? The money that you've made? The true love that you lost as a boy? You cannot even smell the flower that you've strived to create. I bet you lot can't even smell the grasshoppers at your feet. Bridger looked at the other florists in bemusement, and they all just stopped. Their eyes swiveled sideways at each other, then straight ahead, and tried not to look down, like a bunch of crabs. The truth was they all knew they had to. What grasshopper was there? Unsmelled, unnoticed, what tiny thing could unravel the best laid plans of florist beasts? You can never win, Bridger. I am Kane. I am Lotus Flower. I am Monkey. Thank you, Eustace. Welcome back, dearest listeners. A big aloha from Galaxy 5-0 for all you night drifters, you evening primroses, you shrinking violets, you. I know you didn't have the kahunas to talk to her, to walk up to her, to ask her out. Well, you know, to book her, Dano. But no matter, we're all friends here. This is no shame in being all alone listening to another lonely voice here in Galaxy. At least you're not grave robbing for lifestyle advice like some round here. Remember, we do know what you're up to. As we snuff out the light and slip into our Batman gin jams before turning in, there's enough time for the news from the police scanner that Donna P and I generally prefer to listen to at this time of night.
We've been getting reports of many emergency vehicles in attendance at the Lazarus Conference Center dealing with multiple casualties. There has been some kind of violent disturbance at the Florist Convention today. There are reports of several fatalities to what seems like some kind of internal feud amongst the deeply secretive and widely mistrusted section of our community.
Chief Anderson's office has issued a statement.
We can confirm that we have found some dead florists, although the motive and the perpetrator or perpetrators are not yet known. But at this stage, we cannot rule out the obvious, the stirringly obvious, the bleeding obvious, or the uncaringly oblivious. The public are warned to be on their guard, however. We have an eyewitness report of a person leaving the scene, flying away into the night on a small white cloud with a box under his arm. The eyewitness remembers the man having striking sideburns and a magic big stick, small stick, which we believe could be the murder weapon. Be vigilant, Galatry. Remember, call us before we call you.
A flying cloud. What kind of magic could that be, I wonder?
Under the centenary bridge, the voices rise louder and louder, rising in unison. In Galatry, again and again and again.
You have been listening to Galatry, a community-funded local radio station. I'm Adam Aardvark. Max couldn't be around at the end of the show. He often needs to lie down in a darkened room and sort of, well, convalesce. If you enjoyed today's show and want to know more or simply express a simple and not very cogent opinion, then email us at welcometogalatry@gmail.com. You can tell us what you think, although we might already know what you think. Or failing that, if you genuinely have no idea, we can helpfully provide some new ideas that you can call your very own. Ideas that you can share with your friends and family and become a much more interesting and likeable person, if only to yourself. This has been a Galatry Entertainment broadcast recorded in a haunted pub in Galatry. No, honestly, voices appeared on the recordings that we later had to edit out. I think we got them all, but who's to know for sure? Anyway, Galatry is performed by Max Black, written and recorded by Max Black and Adam Aardvark. Is copyright Galatry Productions 2015. Thanks for listening. But remember, on your next journey home, Galatry may be just around the corner.